Hello and welcome back to All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host. And when we went to break, I was speaking with Professor Sheryl Amana Burris, who is a retired law professor. Not only retired law professor, but was a distinguished law professor. And it's important to know that Sheryl has had an exciting career as a lawyer and law professor, and is still engaged in a lot of stuff. Cheryl, let's talk for a moment. Why did you decide to become a law professor? I mean, you had all
Mhm,
kind of options.
mhm.
Why a law professor?
I was never really interested in being a lawyer or a law professor, but I wanted to be a professor. And I thought actually that I would be an English literature professor. I was an English major. I did well. The chair of the department had arranged for me to get a Danford Fellowship and to go on and do graduate work and get a PhD in English literature. But I worked for a law firm over the summer before graduation, and the lawyers thought that I would do well in law school, and they convinced me to take the LSAT just on a I guess a dare actually, because the deadline had passed and they did some wonders and got me an admission 2 weeks before the test. I went ahead and took the test and did well. And then the question was, do I go on and do a PhD in literature or do I go to law school? My parents wanted me to go to law school,
And parents always
and parents,
control.
they do. And in this instance, they controlled as well. And the good thing about the University of Penn Law School is they did allow me to take classes at the Annenberg School of Communications and get law school credit for it. They were used to doing joint degrees. They had the JD MBA for very long time, and so it was easy for them to arrange for me to do that.
In your opinion, what should law students do to prepare themselves to be good lawyers?
A few things. One is they want to make sure that they work hard in undergrad, take courses that will require them to think analytically and to write. In terms of majors, I always say, and I get into some trouble about this, that the best majors are either English, where you have to write, or
Mhm.
something in the math or sciences, where you're really thinking in the abstract. Those are the very best in terms of preparation. Doesn't mean that you have to have any specific major to do well, but those two will really give you the sort of experience that you need. The other is you have to be organized and dedicated. Law is not rocket science. And so you can come to law school and you can do well, and you don't have to be a brainiac. You just have to be organized and a hard worker, and you can get through law
Organized
school.
and a hard work.
Absolutely. And you can get through law school, you can do well and be a wonderful lawyer.
So this whole notion of you have to have a certain pedigree to be a lawyer is, not really correct. If
It
you
is
if
not.
you're a hard worker and you're willing to take the time to study and prepare, you can end up being a good lawyer.
You really will be. And you'll do better than someone who may be a genius and come to law school and doesn't have those skills to get through the materials. And they'll flunk out or drop out. And you will continue and do well because you are organized and you work hard and you can learn the material. As I said, it's not rocket science, but it does require time.
Lawyers require a commitment. It was Charles Hamilton Houston who said, a lawyer is either a social engineer
Mhm.
or
Or
a
parasite
parasite on
on society.
society. And a lot of people don't understand that who go into law. They go into it for the wrong reasons. There's nothing wrong with making money, but it is more important to have an impact on society.
Mhm.
And Cheryl, I think you've been doing just that. Let's talk about some of your community
Mhm.
boards and stuff that you've served on and really have had and continue to have an impact.
Mhm.
Can you talk about some of those? For example, weren't you on the Planned
Parenthood Board, I
Parenthood
was.
board at one point?
And before I go on to some of my community work, I do want to say that it's
Hmm.
not mutually exclusive. You can do well and still make money. And
Absolutely.
so you don't have to think that if you're going to do public service work or public interest work or any of those sorts of things, civil rights work, that you can't still support your family because you in fact can. Now,
Absolutely.
in terms of my background with community work, I have been involved in community service for as long as I've been an adult, and even before, as I did candy striper volunteering when I was 12 years old, and so it's always
And
been
you've done well, and you serve your community. You just
absolutely.
made the point.
Yes. And I was on the board of Planned Parenthood.
Hmm.
I was vice president of the board. And given the current atmosphere with Roe versus Wade having been overturned,
Now,
uh,
let's talk for a moment about Roe versus Wade. There's nothing new about Roe versus Wade except that you had some new justices on the Supreme Court who had promised in their hearings to adhere to precedent and then lied,
lies, all
just
lies.
lied,
Absolutely.
and did something quite different. How do you feel about that, especially since you were on the Planned Parenthood board at one
Well,
point?
I was not surprised. I thought they were lying when they were talking.
You already knew
I
they
didn't
were
think they
lying.
would overturn it this quickly
Quickly,
because they've
yeah.
been, as you know, they've been chipping away at it for 50 years, and that was their plan. Alito, and this may be down in the weeds, but Alito back in the early 80s had actually developed this plan of not trying to overturn Roe outright, but just to chip away
Chip
at it
away
around
at
the
it.
edges, and they kept bringing cases, and they were doing quite well with that. And so I thought they might continue that for a little longer, maybe move the time back to 15 weeks, which is what Mississippi was asking. But no, they said
No.
we're going to throw it all out
They said we got a chance to do it,
and
and
we're
we're
going to
gonna
do
do
it.
it, and we're gonna do it now.
Hmm.
That just shows you how political the Supreme Court can be and was in this particular case. Don't touch that remote. We will be right back with All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host, and my guest is Professor Sheryl Amana Burris.